Debs, if you will, would be turning over his grave right now about the statements that Sanders has made regarding Venezuela. Because Debs wasn't perfect. Went to jail for opposing U.S. intervention in the imperialist world war. Ran for president from jail, got 1 million votes. Took a principled position that was a war for capitalism, and there was nothing for the workers who had stake in it all. Clearly called it out for what it was. We have to be on the streets to support it. We always have to be on the streets. There's no substitute for social media for being on the streets. But an additional act of solidarity that I think we need to take seriously is that to counter the leadership of Sanders and company to the wonderful crowd of growing progressive youth who are excited by his campaign. Sanders said, well, I don't want to see a military intervention, but the U.S. should join other countries, and there should be a new election, and they should be participating with them, and go to Venezuela and participate, because the election of Maduro is fraudulent. This is nothing but succumbing to the media blitz because you don't want to stand up. Now, you can say how much you are opposed to the Trump administration, but we have to take more than just a shallow view of who Trump is. Yes. Trump did not fall from the sky as an individual. Trump is a representative of a section of the capitalist class that arose out of the growth of the right-wing racist military establishment, which over decades and supported by the Republican and Democratic parties has become the most preponderant part of the capitalist economy, surpassing a lot of civilian production, and also looting the federal budget over $1 trillion a year. They just steal it and turn it over to private war profiteers. And that politics flows from economics, not the other way around. So the consistent backing of imperialist war, the consistent backing of imperialist military budgets, the most racist, the most polluting force on the face of the earth, the most depraved and inhumane force, the U.S. imperialist military, led to the assumption of the executive office by Trump and company. Don't let any of what words back and forth, go back. And isn't it interesting that despite the fact that there's so much said about the feud between the Democrats and Republicans who differ over the way to administer capitalism, are all of a sudden almost uniformly together, either completely or in part to support the attack against the Venezuelan people. How can you say you're for democratic socialism when you don't stand up for democratic socialism in Venezuela? A backdoor calling for imperialist intervention in Venezuela. This is going along with your slimy and racist assault on Libya, which has destroyed a beautiful country, that used its oil wealth to the benefit of the Libyan people, that had open borders, that accepted migrants from all over Africa and other parts of the Middle East. This is nothing but who went along with the Iraq War, who go along with all of it, who won't stand up for Palestine, and who don't want to disrupt capitalist relations in the United States. They want people to believe that you can have butter and guns, and we can't. So you can press for all these things, but if you don't stand up and oppose it, and how can you oppose it if you give credence to imperialist propaganda? There's not an ounce of truth to what they are charging Venezuela with. And we have to be, now I was very much involved in an anti-war struggle against the various wars against Iraq, particularly going back into the early 90s when I went to Iraq. There were two national coalitions. We started out as one, but it broke up because the other coalition, the one I was not in, which represented the liberals and some elements of the Democratic Party, said war no, sanctions yes. We said no, sanctions are an act of war. So now you want to cry your eyes out when Madeleine Albright, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, is asked, was killing 500,000 children in Iraq due to sanctions worth it? And she said yes. And she said yes. They know this as well as we know this about imperialism. Will not stop at any depraved, murderous endeavor to slaughter people in the interest of profit. So we have to stand up and reject these things. But we have to reach out to those who are around that movement. Not look down on them. Many are just coming into political, progressive politics for the first time. But we have to challenge. We have to polemicize. We have to combat any capitulation to imperialism based on them succumbing to bourgeois media bullshit. And that is also an act of solidarity with Venezuela, and that is something that when it comes to the struggle here, when there's a strike here, you will see all over the media that the newspapers, the big business newspapers, are condemning that strike. It's disrupting. It's causing hardship. The people are against it. And all this kind of slimy stuff, all calculated to try to get people to be against the strike, and all calculated to break the strike. And this is no different. They're trying to break the strike in Venezuela. And we say no. So we need to put this as part of our arsenal of what we do in terms of solidarity in this upcoming period.
I'm just wondering if there are any, what are some sources that you would recommend for information and news that's coming out of Venezuela?
This Workers' Voice paper. It's published by the New Orleans Workers' Street every month. Yeah, there's a couple of good sides. Their Venezuelan analysis has a decent assessment of what's
Venezuela analysis?
There's another one called the Tribune, which is somebody in Orinoco Tribune. There's somebody in Venezuela who was, I think, former consul general. And yeah, those are a couple of sources that where you can actually get some valuable information about what's happening. What's that?
Do you like approve of this website? It's called socialistworker.org.
I'm familiar with it. Their tendency criticizes the national liberation struggles all over the world. So we don't have very much confidence in their information.
You say what's it? I'm sorry.
What you say?
You say they what?
They oppose two-stage revolutions. They think that revolution should be based solely on the working class. And that does not apply in third world countries. And so they have been on the side many times of the U.S.-backed capitalist regimes. And therefore, we don't trust what they say.
What about Liberation News?
It's fairly good.
Say it.
Yeah, he asked about Liberation News. And they have some factual information that they share with us. I mean, there's several sources, but one thing that you know that you cannot rely on is the bourgeois press, the capitalist press in this country.
Well, I mean, it's just hard to find the
CNN, MSNBC, all those things are just repeating the line of the State Department and trying to whip up sentiment for the invasion of this country. So you have to, I mean, even Vice News, you heard of them?
Yeah, I heard about it.
They have some accurate reports. Al Jazeera, and of course, that kind of stuff. But you just have to be careful as you read to see what people say makes sense. But what we do know is that the U.S. imperialist government is stoking flames of intervention all over the world, and so they're lining up all of their lackeys from countries around the world to justify that intervention and really trying to create influence.
Question, Malcolm. Can you speak a little bit about, so we live here in New Orleans, right? And, you know, we have our share of issues here, and, you know, people are trying to understand all of what's happening internationally. Can you speak a little bit about how understanding what's happening internationally can help us in whatever we're doing locally, and what can we be doing locally to help us get toward that true revolutionary day? Like, what does that look like in practice?
Well, what we do know is all over the world people are up in arms about conditions that are trying to be imposed upon them by the imperialists. We have a few billionaires around the world who control all of the wealth of the world and dictate to the national governments around the world what to do. And so I would say that our duty, of course, is to give all the support to these revolutionary movements all over the world which are breaking out, and have to break out because there's the contradictions which exist between the working people and the owning classes. And the owning classes are trying to extract more and more from the hides of the working people, and the working people are getting sick and tired of it. And in other countries where they are more advanced in their understanding of the contradictions, there are actual fights breaking out. That's what you see in Italy right now. That's what you see in France. That's what you see in Sudan. These countries are definitely on the side of the fight against imperialism, and we should identify with that. Not only that, but we should also be identifying with all the other forces in this country who are especially the teachers at this point. The state workers understand that they are being royally raped by the capitalist class, that this country pretends to be about education about the children, but they're not. They're about exploiting and making as much money as they can through these charter organizations. And all these organizations are against the interests of the people. And so we need to clarify for ourselves that there is a definite class struggle going on in this country. The problem, of course, is that the rich are waging war against us and we're not combating it. So what we need to do is get clear about who our enemies are and quit falling into their traps about fighting among each other about little stuff when the main fight is against the capitalist class that is raping and exploiting and oppressing everybody. But the main thing is people should read our newspaper, get our newspaper, distribute our newspaper, discuss these articles, and get people to understand that what is at stake is not only our lives, but the lives of our children and other generations to come. And we need to step it up so that we can make the world safe for the development of people throughout the world.
We need to hear everything.
Just to add a little bit to what Comrade Malcolm was talking about. I mean, first of all, we need to be outraged that trillions of our money every year is spent on violence in countries throughout the world. Like right now, the American people technically are funding U.S.-backed coups, the smuggling of arms trades. We're technically paying for the open-air prison in Palestine because we helped to fund the IDF. So we should first of all educate ourselves and get agitated about the fact that our country, the United States, is doing the bidding of the capitalist class using our money.
Yes.
Using our funds in a country where we have so many problems, specifically in New Orleans, right? Where we have so many issues that that money could actually help to alleviate. And so when they do that on a national level for international relations, we cannot be surprised that they do it on a local level. That they do this in New Orleans and in the state of Louisiana, they spend their taxes on whatever the hell they want to spend taxes on, right? So we have to be educated about that, be aware of it, agitate, and get organized, and get involved in local struggles, because also, furthermore, international relations or any victory of the capitalist class affects the workers everywhere. Everywhere. Citgo has major hubs in Louisiana, so there's major amounts of Louisiana workers who work for Citgo that if they stop trading and working with Venezuela, Louisiana workers are going to get hurt. But also policies, once working class movements are stifled or anything gets rolled back that workers have won anywhere, it is a threat to workers succeeding everywhere. And so when we know that, we understand that we have to take up and organize, and we have to speak out against this. Because also, throughout the world, guess what all the news says? All the news says that the U.S. is doing this, the U.S. is doing that. But meanwhile, do the people support that? Because it's a very small amount of people who are doing the bidding on behalf of our whole nation. The working class people have to get together and have a voice in the affairs of what our own government is doing, and the violence that is wreaking on the people here in this very same country and throughout the world. The people of the United States, our communities, we have to get together and we have to fight back. Because we don't agree with that. Just like in Venezuela, when they showed the news that that Maduro is not a valid president, there are thousands and thousands of people in the streets marching in support of him. We got to see that here. We have to get active. We have to get organized. Get familiar with the New Orleans Workers Group, with the People's Assembly, with the Hospitality Workers Committee, with Taking Down NOLA. Anywhere you fit in, if you can get in, that's what we should be doing, because it's all connected. None of it, we can't be under any illusions that what Taking Down NOLA is doing over here, oh wow, there's too much of that, that's not connected to white supremacy, which is not connected to capitalism. No, it's all connected.
All of it.
So if you get nothing else from tonight, just realize that all of the issues that we see in our day-to-day lives, everything that oppresses working class people is all connected. And so that if you're involved in any way, shape, or form, if you're any part of that fabric, then you need to be part of the revolution as well.
First of all, Comrade Ashley and Comrade Joseph did that. I really wasn't sure I was gonna make it. I was like in that mode, and I am fired up. Woo! Okay, so bear with me for a few minutes, because you can't be fired up like that and not have somewhere to channel that energy. All right? So just bear with me for a few minutes before you get up and walk out, because I promise it'll be worth it. Just listen. All right. So one thing that I want to say is, you get this good learning, and then you walk out and you wonder, how can you reinforce that learning? I cannot emphasize enough a few things. This forum is not a one hit and move on. This forum, the workers group has decided that these forums are going to happen every month. So just know that. You have to follow the workers group. You have to pull in and get this information, because every month, over the course of the year, there's going to be lots of things happening, and you want to get it, and you want to be able to hear it and experience it. So that's number one. Number two, there is nothing stopping you from making the greatest investment necessary. This paper is 25 cents. It comes out once a month, and because we know that the bourgeois media is not giving us what we need, the workers group isn't sitting by the side and complaining about the news. It's saying, you know what? We'll do the work then. Not only locally, but internationally, whatever it is you need to know once a month is right here in this paper for you, and you're not going to get this kind of thing for 25 cents. But if you want it for the whole month, $20 subscription, be delivered to your house, sent through the mail, whatever is required to get it to you, it will. Anybody in here got a worker's voice coming to your house? Raise your hand high. Anybody in here? Okay, look, there's hands. There's people who actually get their paper once a month. $20, make that happen. But let's say you like, well, that's once a month, I want something a little more regular. The workers group, the workers' voice, not only in paper, happens by radio. Did you know that? Every Saturday on WHIV at 5 p.m. Let me say it again. Every Saturday on WHIV at 5 p.m. you get an hour of this. You can sit in your house, you can turn on the computer, you go to WHIV, and on the screen, no, I gotta break this down. I'm gonna make this easy. Go to WHIV, and on the screen, on the website, it'll say listen here, and you just click it at 4:55 when you get ready. And you listen. Let's say you're busy on Saturday, you can't be present live, because it's live. The show is happening live. It happened yesterday live. You can't, you go to SoundCloud, and you go to NOLA Workers. If you go there tonight, time you leave, you get to the house, you ready to eat dinner, you pull it up, SoundCloud, go to NOLA Workers, and you just listen to all the shows that you missed over the last year. They are fire. You will get caught up. I'm telling you, don't be intimidated by this, folks. You hear all this, you're not even sure, you're talking about countries, you're not even sure where it is on the map. I promise you, you can get caught up. Your consciousness can get elevated in a short amount of time if you decide that you want it. Because I promise you, this information that's being shared tonight, it is the thing that keeps us fired up about what's happening locally. And what we're doing locally, don't think that it doesn't matter. It can have a great impact on not only our work in the country, but our work in the world. Because when people are organized locally, then it makes it easier for them to say, let me step across this line and bond hands with the people who are across, because they're organized too. Collectively, it accelerates the movement. We have an opportunity. Our consciousness, and it starts with us getting this knowledge, this information, and having some discernment. We can't get free. I say again, and I'm going to give you some concrete examples of things you can roll into for the month of March. I am so grateful that in spite of some of my ancestors being born into chattel enslavement, and their parents being born into chattel enslavement, and their parents being born into, that's the only system they knew. So some people will look me in the face and say, well, capitalism, it ain't gonna ever end. I'm so glad chattel slavery had come to an end. But I also know that this new system that's been formed, this wage slavery thing, this can't be life either. And there has to be an opportunity, but I could just say, this is just the way it is, and I can't do anything about it. Yes, you can. History has shown us that people who decide to fight back together can change anything. So, I want you, if you're on social media, you can follow the New Orleans Workers Group, you can follow People's Assembly, you can follow Take 'em Down NOLA, you can follow the New Orleans Hospitality Workers Alliance. Why? Because there's a lot of things going on, and I'm going to share some of them with you. There's some of this information in the paper, there's flyers, you can go to social media. You have no excuse but to get involved. And every way that you get involved is practice for the revolution. You might think you're doing something just a little bit today, but if you can feel the fight in your spirit, and you can find the courage in your backbone, and you can align your actions with your beliefs, and find some other people doing the same, anything is possible. So on March 13th, at 9 a.m., the residents of Gordon Plaza are fighting for their life. There is literally going to be a federal lawsuit that's happening. They have been fighting for decades now. At 9 a.m., we are going to be in federal court. And I have flyers, so I'm going to just keep talking. I'm going to give you the flyers afterwards. We need you to join us. We need you to join the residents because they're living on toxic soil. And they've been living on toxic soil. And they've done all the right things, and still they need to be relocated, and the city has the money. Everything that they just shared in terms of what happens with our federal budget is happening with our local budget. Our money, 63% of it is going toward cops, jails, and reactive measures. Mass incarceration doesn't happen by osmosis. It happens because the system is designed to make that happen. Only 3% of that money is dedicated to children and families, and 1% toward job development. So it really does not matter what people say about the changes they want to make, unless they are aligning the resources accordingly, we know what their priorities are. They have not prioritized the residents of Gordon Plaza, and that's why they're still on toxic soil. But something can happen now, and a relocation can happen if we can stand with them, by them, for them. On March 13th, that same day, in the evening, you can come and get a meal. People's Assembly is hosting a Women's Dinner Wednesday, has been doing so for the entire year, every month. The only reason it's on Thursday is because if it was on the first Wednesday like it normally is, you probably wouldn't show up because you caught up in Mardi Gras. But that's okay. We moved it. We adjusted to the environment. March 13th is going to happen at 6 p.m. at Journey Alice Art Studio. If you are a woman, we are fighting for workers' rights. We are supporting the hospitality workers. We're supporting the New Orleans Hospitality Workers Alliance. And we're going to be using that time as we're breaking bread to organize for March 16th, which is International Working Women's Day. On a Saturday, we're going to march through these streets. You can meet us in Congo Square on that day. Go to the social media platforms, get a workers' voice paper. All that information is in this paper. There's $180 million tax dollars stolen from the workers, stolen from the residents here, and we want all of that money. Mayor Cantrell said she wants $7 million for infrastructure. Then she said $70 million because she was looking real silly. We don't want 7. We don't want 70. We want all of it. Yeah. All of it is ours, and we want it for the workers.
All right.
March 19th, the public is invited to come and hold the police department accountable. There's a police consent decree. And it is only because local folks organized to make sure that there was a consent decree to monitor what's happening with our police department. People say, now the police, they're so nice. What police you talking about? What community do you live? And the only reason that they halfway try to hold themselves together is because they're being monitored so closely. But the federal government is not our friend either. So we as community have to monitor what's happening, and we have to come together and have input. So that's going to be at 5 p.m. at Ashe Powerhouse, and we want to make sure that we have community present. And last but not least, I want to share with you on the 21st of March, all the people who say they care about the children and what's going on with the charter schools, you can show up for the meeting, and that is going to be on the 21st. And all of that information is available on our sites. Take them down, Nola. Follow the People's Assembly, follow the New Orleans Hospitality Workers, and follow the workers group, and get involved. Yes. Because we don't want you just to be intellectually aware that all of these things are happening. We want you to apply your knowledge, and one of the ways you can do it as an organizer is apply it. Join us in these streets as we do this work.
Yes.
I absolutely am.
I think it's a good idea.
Yes, it's an excellent idea. We need to. And the flyers are coming around with all the detailed information.
So on behalf of the workers group, I really want to thank y'all for coming out tonight. We have a few refreshments. We also have a selection bucket back there if you want to make a contribution to our work. Okay, we're going to pass that around. On behalf of the workers group, thank y'all for coming out, and see y'all on the picket line.
Yeah. All right,